it's more important to have training in movement and dance before starting musical theatre. The lack of boys, weren't many people, and so it was just like, you're just going to have to play so-and-so. I think some of those roles a female actor could have played quite easily. So it comes from the Greek word kalos, building your body mass by using your body weight. It can be quite off-putting. Muscle-ups, the human flag, very impressive physiques. I do think it's super useful. Hello everyone, and welcome to Movement Theories. This has been in the making for a while and it's finally happened. So I'm Josh, I'm going to be your main host, and this is...
I'm Kaitlin.
And Kaitlin is going to be joining us frequently, I'd say, on some of these episodes. So today we're talking about calisthenics. We're talking about how that benefits dancers, if it benefits dancers. We're talking about productivity over the summer because we've got quite a few months ahead of us. And as a performer, in my mind, I'm like, what should I do to prepare for I'm going to drama school next year. And then we're going to end with a bit of a debate. And that's how most episodes are going to end. We're going to have contrasting opinions on a certain topic. And the topic for today is entering the industry as a dancer or entering the industry as a singer. So yeah, let's get started. My name's Joshua Cambridge. I am 18, and next year, September, I'm going to Bird College in Sidcup in London. And so I'm going to spend 3 years there to get a degree, hopefully, in musical theatre and dance. What about yourself?
I'm Kaitlin. I'm also 18. And I am going to train at the Central School of Speech and Drama, doing a drama, applied theatre and education degree, hopefully. And that's also in London. And yeah, it's all very exciting. I am open to all sorts of prospects, you know. I'd love to do some presenting. So this is like a really cool opportunity to get to do. Yeah.
Now, you're starting a month later than I am.
Yes.
Which means you've got a month more to do whatever. Mm-hmm. Now, in this time we're going on holiday. We're doing some charity work in Africa. However, the weeks that we do have here, with working our jobs, what are you going to do to try and stay productive, maybe learn something, do something before you go that once you get there you think is going to help you out?
Well, I've actually managed to squeeze in a whole musical.
That is true.
I was in a theatre company for 8 years and I thought I'll have a break, before I go to uni. Keep up a few things, but take a break maybe. But I actually ended up signing up to be in Little Shop of Horrors, which is one of my absolute favourite musicals. And so when I saw that there was an opportunity to do that, coming up, I absolutely had to take it.
Is this your first time in that show? Or have you done it before?
Yeah, so I've not been in Little Shop of Horrors before. I originally auditioned for Audrey and the Greek chorus, and I ended up playing Crystal, which is one of the Greek chorus. So I basically don't leave the stage. Yeah. But it's an amazing challenge because I'm singing some ridiculously high notes, but also doing lots of very complex kind of small movements that aren't very, it wouldn't be considered, you might know the show, but it wouldn't generally be considered a very dancey show. Yeah. But for the Greek chorus, there is a lot of very specific, very kind of complex movement that's all very small and very rhythmic, which is a really difficult challenge to have to do that and sing really high and do all of these things at once. But it's definitely going to help me progress and is a huge challenge. So I'm really excited about it.
Can I be a bit of a pain? I'm just going to move this one down there for you.
Okay.
I feel like your mouth is usually more of an angle. This is our first kind of in-person podcast that we've done, and so we're learning on the go with everything. Yes. But we hope over the next however many episodes we do, hopefully it's quite a few, you'll start to see an improvement in quality and in just the continuity of
Yeah.
stuff that we're doing, keeping
Yeah.
it at the same level. Is there anything else that you think you want to try and achieve? I remember the other day doing a little session with you. Do you want to talk about what that was?
Yeah, we did a little tumbling
We did.
session,
Yeah.
which is something that I did a little bit of gymnastics when I was younger, nowhere near quite as much as you did.
Yeah.
But it was something I have always kind of wanted to learn to do, but never had the time or the space. And now we kind of do.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I think would really add to my list of things that I can do. And it's just quite cool, isn't it?
It is very cool.
Feel cool.
Yeah, so I'm teaching you
Yes.
different tricks and some of the fundamentals of what you need to know to do those tricks. So we've started with handsprings,
Yeah.
forward handsprings. And a lot of that comes from like a pop from the shoulders to kind of like push yourself over.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of finding exercises that we've talked through to do stuff like that. I think generally for productivity over the summer, there can be a lot of pressure to like, I've got to do loads, and I think something you've got to be careful with is that you don't burn out.
Yeah.
You don't want to, be like, oh, I'm going to uni and I need to try and achieve so much. But by the time you get there, you're just really tired. You don't
Yeah.
have the energy. So I think the most important thing is, give yourself that freedom to say, maybe not today, or I'll try that tomorrow.
I think you need that balance, don't you, of kind of work and play. And like we've got, I would say that we've got quite a nice balance this summer of kind of doing, like getting to go to Uganda and do some charity work and teaching in schools, which means we can kind of pass on our knowledge of movement and things like that in that kind of way, but also then putting our own work in at home, like working our jobs because it's going to be expensive
Yeah.
to live in London. But also, we're finding things that we want to do that we enjoy.
Absolutely.
What about you? What are you doing over this summer?
So I'm working a job and I'll start fairly full time, I think, once we kind of hit peak season of the summer. I'm going to Uganda, which is going to be very exciting. And for those of you who are watching who know about NYMT, I am on The Boy Who Sailed the Ocean in an Armchair, which is with the National Youth Musical Theatre Company. And so I've done a week with them already, and I've got another 2 weeks on August, I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
And we're performing at the Leicester Curve. So if you're interested, you should definitely get some tickets and come watch me because it's going to be
Very
great.
good promo.
Yeah, I am very much kind of chorus, kind of background stuff. But for someone, I've been doing musical theatre for 2 years now. And so most of my experience with performing is dance and acro. And so I've found I really enjoy being in the kind of the chorus in the background and just getting to do all of the dancing and all of the ensemble stuff, which I think is
Yeah.
really fun.
I think this is why this debate at the end is going to work, because I've been doing musical theatre for 14 years.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 2.
And I would say that my strengths lie more in the singing and the acting. And singing is the thing that I feel most confident doing.
Yeah.
But I do like to do dance and movement. And in August, I will hopefully have an A-level in dance.
Yes.
However, obviously singing is kind of where my strong point lies. But obviously that's very different for you, and we have very different experiences within musical theatre. I think, gender can also play a role in that. Like the things that maybe I've experienced would be quite different from what you have. And so
An
I think
example of that,
Yeah.
I think, is the lack of boys in theatre at the moment. Meant I walked into the company with very limited experience, and I was, would you say, handed things because they needed to, like, a part to be
in our local theatre company.
in a local one. Yeah, this isn't, it was like there weren't many people, and so it was just like, you're just going to have to play so and so, which is kind of unfair because I think some of those roles a female actor could have played quite easily, like the guard in The Wizard of Oz.
You did a very good job.
Thank
but
you. No, I appreciate that.
I don't know. I think that is a real interesting thing to discuss in amateur theatre, of kind of whether, there are roles that could be played by actors that maybe aren't the traditional gender of
Yes.
but I feel like that's something we can explore in another episode.
I definitely,
that's a bigger conversation.
I definitely would like to go in detail
Yeah.
onto those topics. Now, a lot of this episode, we're talking about things that you can do over the summer. We're doing some macro stuff.
Yeah.
We've got our summer jobs. Now, as I believe the title of this podcast should say, calisthenics and its uses in dances, I honestly think, and I was going to say this now and then I'll explain, I do think it's super useful. Because as a dancer, and in theatre in general, you want to be able to move, okay? You want to be able to have complete freedom to move your body how you would like to. And so I'm going to kind of talk through some of the research that we've kind of looked at for calisthenics, because it's really interesting. So as it is basically building your body mass by using your body weight. That is the premise. Yeah, it's a nice and basic. That's what it is. Now some extreme examples, and I think most people when they look at calisthenics, they see these influencers online doing some crazy, really advanced exercises and skills, such as muscle ups, the human flag, which I do think is super impressive. But then it can be kind of brought down as simple as just body dips, which you can do on sofas. That's calisthenics. You're doing bodyweight exercises. And I think it's really useful. I really do. But I think because you see the most difficult side of it, it can be quite off-putting to try and train or to try and join in. And I'm starting to see some like more beginner level stuff, but not enough at the moment, I don't think. When you think of bodybuilders, okay, they're doing it to try and grow the size of their muscles, and that's the point of them exercising, trying to get big, have an impressive body. Powerlifters, it's just about lifting heavier weights. When we think about, the limit to your movement and flexibility, it's going to be great because you're not focusing on muscles or stretching areas that are going to help you move. And so you see, lots of these people who are really built, really strong, very impressive physiques, not have much movement capability. And this is seen when they try and do some climbing, for example, and how they really struggle. And I don't think bodybuilding or powerlifting at all is a bad thing. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I think it's a lifestyle choice. But I think for a dancer, for someone in theatre, calisthenics could be really useful because you're using your muscles. The point of the exercises is to be able to get a use out of them. You develop a skill set and you improve your body's posture and like the composition of your body. So I do think it's something that's very useful. Now I've got some research here. I've gone very much into where it's come from. So it comes from the Greek word kalos, which stands for beauty, and stenos, which stands for strength, which I think is really nice. The beauty and strength. And what the human body is capable of, it's a very beautiful thing, really, when you think about it. Now, my acrobatic training introduced me to, I'd say, the basics. So lots of the exercises that I would do in acrobatics, I have found have crossed over. And the last week, I've decided over the summer, the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do calisthenics workouts alongside with some of the tumbling.
Well, maybe you should talk a bit about your gymnastics training that you've had.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Your experience.
So I did gymnastics for 12 years. I started from the age of 4, and I went up until 16, I think. It was a really long time. It was a long period. Are you okay there?
Good.
Yeah. Is it not twisting smoothly?
No, it's just hard to get the exact.
Oh, I see.
Right with this, but I'm getting it.
Yeah. So this is our cameraman. But you're not going to see him. Maybe some BTS footage. This is Joseph Burren. He's been very helpful.
He's full named.
The executive producer on this podcast.
Why don't you just tell them my bank number?
So my acrobatic training, I did it for 12 years, and it was tough. I was spending generally 11 hours a week, but coming up to competitions, I'd come in on an extra day, do an extra like 3.5 hours, and so it was really long. But it kind of it's shown me all of the entry level stuff in calisthenics, and so I really got like comfortable using my body in weird and wonderful ways. And so I found that as a dancer, I came into dance in year 7. That's when I first started. I've been doing it ever since, and I have a disadvantage in some aspects, in some of the experience and some of the flow, but I had an advantage in some of the things I could do were really, really very impressive.
Doing that many hours a week must be, it kind of links back to us talking about burnout, because that's a lot for a young person to do. Even an adult, that's like a lot.
Yeah. I have experienced burnout badly twice, I'd say. And I get it every now and then, like on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
And it's not something you want. And so it's saying over the summer, you want to give yourselves these challenges. Okay. You want to be finding something that's going to push you, but you don't want to burn yourself out, because before university, especially if you've just finished your A-levels, such as ourselves, that's not going to be nice. It's not going to be nice at all. So, yeah, more about calisthenics. Some of the things I found. You're building lean muscle mass. You're getting this toned, very strong physique. I had a look at a study.
Oh, very professional.
Yeah. It's a very interesting study. Let me talk to you about it. So it was by the University of Palermo in Italy. I have really butchered that. I'm very sorry. But it was basically about the effects of calisthenics training on the intervention on posture strength and body composition. So let's have a little look at what I found. So it took 28 men, divided them into 2 groups. One group practiced calisthenics 8 weeks, and the other group continued their normal workout routines for those 8 weeks. And so that is like a direct comparison of a calisthenics training program and just your normal one.
And the control group, yeah.
Yes. That's very professional of you.
I studied sociology. We study all of this.
And so then after the 8 weeks of these 2 different programs, all of the participants underwent a body composition analysis, a postural assessment, a hand grip test, and a press up and pull up test. It's something I found with grip is, I'll talk through some of the workouts that I've been doing, and it's really tough on the grip because you're just dangling.
Yeah. For
all of the pull exercises, they're all just like hanging on a pull up bar doing different things. So the research discovered that the men who trained calisthenics had improved their posture and lowered their fat mass, which I think most people who are interested in exercise, that's what they want.
Yeah.
They want to lower the mass of the fat and also improving your posture and standing, sitting, everything better.
Yeah, you want good posture if you're going to be on stage.
Yeah, especially if you want to do theatre, which is why I do think it's important. And also the number of press-ups and pull-ups they were able to do had also increased, even though the training didn't actually include those specific exercises. So it was doing exercises around that. However, in contrast, the other group, just doing normal exercise to control, as you said, who'd done their normal training routines, hadn't really improved on what they could do before the 8 weeks had begun and hadn't found a significant difference, which I think is so very interesting when you think you're wanting to exercise to build muscle, increase mobility and lower fat amount. And in 8 weeks, there was a massive difference for the people who chose to do a calisthenics routine, which, I think is really cool. So I'm going to talk about kind of some of my goals that I want over this summer. I don't know them off the top of my head. I had to write them down because I kept on thinking of new things.
Yeah.
I've lowered them down to 4 main ones, though.
That's good.
That I think are the most important, so that we won't be here for ages. The L sit, which is basically where your hands are on the ground and you lift up your whole body. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to do that well. A muscle up, it's a tough one. Actually, no, I've got 5. A front lever. If you don't know these things, you can Google them. A front lever, the human flag, and handstand push-ups.
You've made yourself accountable now that you've said this on camera. Yeah. It's recorded now,
I want footage of this later.
So in
Yeah.
3 months,
Proof.
3 months we'll come back and we'll see how many of those I've achieved.
Exactly that. You're accountable for it now. You've got however many people are watching this to go.
But we'll see. This will be a
It's gonna
test to
happen.
see if what I've been talking about is actually useful or not, or if I'm just waffling.
Well, that's good.
But the pull day, as I've said, it focuses on hanging. Push is very much your in front support, doing loads of different press up variations or different downward dog techniques and strengthening the different muscles. And then the leg, very traditional, hip mobility, general leg strength. There's a thing called an eccentric pistol squat.
Ooh, what a name.
Now let me explain what an eccentric pistol squat is. It's basically, you stand on one leg, okay, and you have your other leg out, and you just squat down on that one leg all the way to the
I've
ground,
tried to do that.
and then all the way back up, and they are tough.
Yeah.
They are tough. I can do maybe a couple, but I can't like.
It
rep
was
them
a
out.
TikTok trend for a while, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Damn. Something I found. TikTok trends on the whole, like 80% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But there are 20% of them that I go, that's actually really useful because you're
Well,
trying.
that's what the algorithm's for, isn't it?
Yeah. There's one at the moment, this big creator, and it's basically the song Macabre.
Yes.
And he basically runs into the shot, goes like this, goes like that with his body, and then goes like this. And that's the video. And he's posted like 20 of them with different creators,
yeah.
and that's about it. Like, how is that a trend? You're not doing anything. You're not dancing. I find sometimes when someone's not really providing much value, it just gets a little bit like, come on. And actually, you can see most of the comments are just like, yeah, this is a bit overused now.
Ooh.
And if your comment section is turning away from you, then that's not good. On the kind of the topic of comments, if you've got this far, thank you very much. Feel free to comment because we want to know what you think about what you've listened to so far,
Definitely.
what you're going to continue to listen to if you stay on here.
If you've got any ideas, what we should talk about.
So feel free, comment your thoughts. Make sure you like the video, so we want to know who actually is engaging and thinking it's good. And you can dislike as well. I can tell both metrics, and both are important metrics. But
You don't hear that very often.
but they are important though, because you get to see what people think.
True.
And it's still engagement. And subscribe. I think that's very important. You'll get these recommended to you much more.
I
and
think
that's very
I am.
useful. And put the notification. Yes, I forgot about that notification bell. That's an important one. That's an important.
I am the crux of YouTube. Like, you can tell me off for this, but I'm really bad at subscribing to things. I rely on my recommended page.
Don't be like Kaitlin.
Don't do what I do.
Don't be like Kaitlin.
Because I just rely on my recommended, which is it's not good. I'm gonna have to fix that.
Yeah.
It's a toxic trait.
Now, I haven't completely clickbaited you. The title should be about a dancer and calisthenics. I'm going to talk to you about some other benefits of being a dancer doing this. Something I found is the things that are really working, because they're not muscles or they're not areas that I train a lot, are my wrists.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive one. I'm finding those have getting a strain on them.
Yeah.
But also my elbows and my shoulders. When you do calisthenics, you're training your wrists, your
Yes.
shoulders and your elbows. And that really helps with kind of like the pushing motion.
Yeah.
Which isn't something that I don't think people in dance focus on. And so, for example, just a roll on the floor and then using your hands to push yourself out of it, I've seen some slow versions of that.
Yeah.
And I think doing calisthenics can really help the flow to really be sped up and be very useful. And just making the performance as a whole just a bit more smooth. Moving with ease,
Yeah.
I think, is kind of the important thing. So we've decided that we're going to end each of our episodes with a bit of a debate. And I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
And every time we're going to have very opposite or the opposite viewpoint on a particular subject. I think it might be quite fun to introduce into this lovely mug here. We'll put in opinions on things, and so at random we pick out, and so we know that the next episode, whatever the topic is that gets decided, I have to be for, you have to be against, for
Okay.
example.
I like that. That's a good
Which
idea.
is going to be interesting. But for now, we've said I am going to be saying why it's better to enter the industry as a dancer, and you're going to say
As a singer.
as a singer.
As a singer.
This isn't necessarily true. Maybe it's good to be a bit of a
Yeah.
both.
No, I would give a disclaimer of the fact that, like, there is obviously a happy median and
Yes.
somewhere in between this, but that
This is
wouldn't be as
entertainment.
exciting to talk about.
This is for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? I feel like
don't
you've
want-
been very prepared
Yeah, I've come with my, like,
for this.
little notepad of notes. Quite exciting. Well, basically, I've got, sources, links, all of it. So I looked up on lastminute30tickets.com and it says musical theatre performers, as a rule, need to be well versed in all aspects of live performance, but singing and acting are the backbone to a musical theatre show. And this is a quote: dancing is an additional treat, not a necessity, which is a controversial statement in itself, but I think it's a very interesting point. There was, I think it was on Broadway World that said singing, it was at one of the discussion boards, and it was like, singing is acting. Like, you can't sing, I mean, you can sing without acting, but in musical theatre, you can't really sing without acting. And singing is just a monologue to music, isn't it, really? Or a duologue, or, dependent on the song that you're singing. But personally, I think music has such a big influence on the emotion or the tone of a performance. And obviously you dance to music most of the time. But I think the lyrics behind that can really, dependent on where they fall in the music and how, they're acted and performed, it can have such a huge impact on the audience. Things like Dear Evan Hansen, you wouldn't think of as a dancey musical. There's like not really dance in it. There's movement, but not dance. Like, I love walking and
So we're saying it's an important, you're saying it's an important...
I'm saying that singing is...
Or the most important part.
Well, on all honesty, I think acting is a foundation, isn't it, really? Because
for sure,
acting is...
It's theatre, musical theatre.
Exactly,
it's
acting.
Theatre.
But singing, I think, assists acting the best, because I think putting music behind those words gives it even more emphasis. And I don't think, I think some musicals are really, you can enjoy them, but it's difficult when a song is just plopped in there for like the fun of it. But I think when you use that song to push along the storyline and convey these characters' emotions, it can be really impactful and really beneficial to the storyline. And I think in some ways you can argue the same with dance. It's like,
oh, you're not arguing for dance, I'm arguing for
maybe
dance.
You can work that in, but I feel like dance breaks are quite easily just put in for no reason.
I think I do think it's more important to have training in movement and dance before starting musical theatre. And my reasoning is anyone can sing. Okay.
Ooh,
so when I'm
bold
thinking,
statement.
When I'm thinking, like, so many people from our secondary school, for example, are good singers. Yeah. They haven't necessarily had lots of training, but like their voice naturally, they've got a good voice. But could they dance? No, they'd need to be trained to dance.
See, I'd argue that you can teach anyone to dance, but you can't teach anyone to sing.
You can teach everyone to sing.
No, because
for sure.
Right. Listen, I have taught singing lessons. I've
taught dance lessons.
Yes, I've also taught dance lessons. But I think that singing is something that, like, you can give it your best shot, and I think you can really improve if you can sing as long as you can sing to a tune. You can sing and you can teach and you can evolve. And I'm not saying if you want to learn to sing, don't give up. Please try, and please find a singing teacher or find things online where you can practice, because it's one of the best things. But I think if someone is truly tone deaf, you can't teach them to sing. I don't know if that's the right word. If someone is truly can't match pitch, like if you play a note and they sing something completely opposite,
I think that can be trained though.
See, I think
because you're saying like it's so infuriating or it's so difficult, but just spend time teaching that person just how to.
I have, and I will, and the people I've taught have been absolutely incredible. But I think
slating these little kids.
No, Joshua, don't make me sound like that. If I think there is it kind of sounds bad, but I think to a certain extent, it takes a slight musical ear to be able to hear a note and then sing it back to you, and that might come naturally to you or me, but.
But is that not the same for a dancer? You've got to be able to react to the music that you're hearing. You've got to be able to dance, and whether you're in time with the music. If you can't sing in time with a song, how are you going to dance in time?
That's a good point.
I feel like those go quite hand in hand.
Rhythm is something you need for both.
Generally speaking, I think anyone with enough time, patience, dedication, can learn how to dance, can learn how to sing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I completely
I've
agree.
been singing for 3 years, like lessons now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm a great singer, but I can hold myself. I hold my own. You've been singing for
A long time.
a long time. You know, like your time spent singing is like my time spent doing movement and
Yeah.
dance and stuff.
Well, that's what I mean is when I'm arguing this, I don't mean it like that. Like I'm just saying these opinions so we have something to argue about.
Yes, of course.
I love teaching people to sing and I love music, and
Yeah.
one of my favourite things is to we did a concert recently with loads of primary schools, and hearing them all sing is just, I think music should be introduced to everyone's lives.
Oh, for sure. But then I think that goes with dancing, you know.
That's true.
The music for songs and music for dance.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like everyone can't do this or everyone can do it. I think
Yeah, no,
everyone can be taught how to. But I think it's easier for people with no experience to be able to hold their own in a song. Like, there would be a select few, but the people I've seen in college who can sing really well and don't really have much training, they could go onto a Western show, they could kind of sing a song, but they couldn't do any of the movement.
Oh, see, I disagree with that. I think if you look at musical theatre shows, to sing some of those songs well is really tough.
Some of the really difficult ones.
Even if you're not...
chorus.
If you're not trained, I think there is...
Is there not a lot of
I think
people
you
who are
can
in
go
the
into it
industry
without-
without training, though?
You can go into it without training, but without if you picked some random person that could sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star nice and go, okay, now you're going to perform in a West End show, I think it's such a different kind of thing. And there are people without training that are incredible, like Carrie Hope Fletcher, like Jamie Moscato, like these incredible performers. And I'm not saying it's not training, but I'm saying that you can't, I don't think you can just pick any Tom, Dick or Harry to come and like sing on a West End stage. And I think we proved that because I would really like to talk about stunt casting because I've written down about an example of this.
Okay.
It's, there will be people out there who know what I mean. In America, on Broadway, a couple of years ago, they cast Cameron Dallas in Mean Girls on Broadway as Aaron Samuels, who is like the love interest. And he's known for being an actor. And
What do you mean by stunt casting?
so stunt casting, for anyone that doesn't know, is when they cast, so a show on the West End or on Broadway might cast a famous person who is not, like, might be a musical theatre, might be an actor, might not be someone you expect to see on stage in a musical, which
Oh.
will then give them more, it'll attract people.
Correct
So-
me on this. Would an example be, as a Star Wars fan here, Mandalorian season 3, Lizzo turned up at some point and was just a star for the episode. Would that be stunt casting?
It would be slightly
because they're not an actor or an actress. They're a singer.
It would be slightly different in musical theatre context, but it would be a relatable example if you didn't know. But, for example, Joe Sugg was cast in Waitress a few years ago, and he's not known for being in musical theatre or an actor. Like, he was a kind of influencer first, and then
content creator.
they cast him in that, and he was great. And I think Colleen Ballinger was in, she was also in Waitress, and they've cast people like Oria Duba and all sorts of like celebrities that they put into shows to try and attract more audiences if the show's like maybe not doing as well or not, making enough money, whatever. But stunt casting is a controversial topic as it is because there are actors and performers, graduates who have worked their entire lives to get on a West End stage, and then there's these people that aren't trained or not. You've pointed that out, and that's a bad word to use, but who aren't anywhat in the musical theatre
Aren't classically
sphere.
trained?
Even that, like, you'd argue that Carrie Fletcher didn't go to drama school, so she wouldn't be considered classically trained. She had experience, but she wasn't.
But don't people use her name and her big following to attract audiences in that same way?
Yes, but she wouldn't. I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. she would be considered a stunt casting because she
Is a musical
theatre performer, whereas someone like Joe Sugg is completely out of that sphere. And so there are going to be hundreds of people that have auditioned for that one part, but he's been given it and he did an amazing job from things that I've heard and clips that I've watched and things. But he's not a trained musical theatre performer, and the people who are in that kind of fandom and musical theatre sphere, I remember there being a bit of upset because that's not, what they're trained to do.
So I can see that there's upset. However, I want to highlight that you said, from what you've heard and clips that you've seen, that he's done a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He couldn't go into the ensemble of that show and do a big dance thing.
It's very true.
But he has gone in and he's done the acting and a singing role.
Yeah.
He hasn't had as much training in that, doesn't need as training. But if he wanted to go into the industry, and where most of the jobs are, 60 to 80% is an ensemble stuff, you're going to need to be able to move and to dance, Technically, because your voice isn't being, isolated in a solo, you don't need to sound perfect.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have a perfect voice, but I've got a great voice for ensemble because I can carry a note and I can really boost the baritone part that I sing.
Well, actually, that's interesting you say that, because I did do a bit of research on that, and I see, what you mean by that, and I kind of looked into that a little bit, and the fact that, you can't just go into an ensemble, and there are things out there that say, if you were in an ensemble cast like Grease, Footloose, that kind of thing, you need a strong enough voice to carry the harmonies, to sing whilst doing all of that incredibly complex and physical movement.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be as perfect. But then I don't have these percentages, but if you could look at the shows on the West End or on Broadway on tour right now, you could maybe look into, it would be interesting to see how many of them are dancey shows and how many are not. Because, for example, I think honestly, this whole debate is what kind of shows we look at typecasting and things, and what kind of shows you're suitable for, because our kind of shows, there's probably a bit of overlap, but we would be cast in very different things. Because, for example, shows like Les Mis, I don't need to be able to, do half the things that you might want to do in chorus line. Les Mis, a lot of it you can park and bark if you're going to play, especially principals. You just act and sing, and that's the kind of focus of the whole thing. And I think big dance numbers would just take away from that. And shows, like Bonnie and Clyde, Into the Woods, don't have that much dance, or there's bits of movement, but I wouldn't say none of it's big showy dance numbers. But there's
it depends on the show.
Yeah, because you look at West End Live and
the
shows we saw at West End Live and this year, and how some of them were really quite dancey, like 42nd Street. You'd need to be an incredible tapper to be in 42nd Street, but those people that those hundreds of actors are less likely to be placed against those people who would consider themselves singer actors, because they're gonna go for those different types of roles. So you could argue that actually we're relatively equal, because it's different kinds of jobs that we're going for. Because if you're a singer actor, there are a lot of roles that principal style roles that you could play that you don't need to dance loads for, Wednesday Addams, I don't know, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. There are Ep1, loads of them, but maybe things like Crazy for You or 42nd Street or Footloose, there's loads of them that you would need a strong voice, but also a strong dance capability.
So I guess my end question for you is, when we're thinking about, and maybe it would be good to find an actual statistic on this.
Yes.
But how much training you need to go into West End into a singer-actor role, and how much you need under your belt, and if some of that can just be from just raw talent, compared to how much training you need to go into these big ensemble, chorus, crazy physical dance.
I think the amount of, if you go and watch shows like this, if we're lucky enough to go and be able to do that, you can so appreciate the amount of effort and work that these incredible ensembles put in. And I think it's really sad that there is often a viewpoint among amateur theatre that like being in the ensemble isn't good enough, like, and everyone wants to be a principal, because these ensemble moments are like some of the highlights. Like if you go and watch Newsies, the thing you leave thinking about is
the ensemble,
is the dancing and the ensemble. Sure. Like, I mean, the principals are incredible and the songs are beautiful, but it is the like takeaway. That's why it's won the Olivier for best choreography, because the dance is something else. Yeah. You know. So I think it depends on the role. I think acting will always come first out of the three, because it's
you've got to act in everything.
You know, exactly. You can't perform a musical theatre show if you had no face, if you didn't have a story to tell.
Yeah.
If, you know, and singing and dancing are just like the icing on the cake, the like glamour to it, because that, you know, you watch plays and things and a lot of them add influences of, you know, bits of music or movement and things like that. Maybe like examples of Frantic Assembly or Caucasian Chalk Circle, like have bits of those, but I think the foundation is acting and performance, and then you put on top of that the singing and dancing.
So I guess we could say that from this we've affirmed, also like secured the fact that acting is the most important.
Yeah.
Everything else is beneath being an actor.
I think, but then again, I debate that because...
But you've got to act in every element of it.
It's true. I think you've got to be able to act, but it's not beneath.
Because
I don't like the word beneath.
Beneath maybe is not the correct word. But I came into our local company.
Yeah.
I had some singing ability, I had some dancing ability, but I'd never put them with acting.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want to put me on stage with just the singing and dancing stuff I was doing, because I wasn't telling any stories. And so that was drilled into me through the choreographer and director. And which I thought was really helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice...
I think so. But let us know if you disagree.
Yeah.
And I know some of those statements were probably quite bold. But remember, it's for entertainment purposes. We don't want to get cancelled.
We want to know what your thoughts are on
let
this,
us know.
do comment that.
Yeah.
And our socials, we have a TikTok, we have Instagram, and it's all Movement Theories MTP. Perhaps, I don't know.
We don't know.
If we can edit that.
But yes, Movement Theories MTP. And if it's not on screen right now, we'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
Or link it somewhere.
Well, thank you very much for listening. And if you have, we really appreciate that. Do let it be known that you've got to this point. Do comment something. We'd like to know who has been interested. If this is something that you've really liked, then absolutely, we'd love it if you shared it with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, we also will be posting these on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And so we'd love it if you go over there and download it. And you could, if you've only listened to the beginning, or actually, how have they only listened to the beginning part and reached this part of the podcast?
Maybe they just skipped through the debate.
Maybe, if they didn't enjoy it. But thank you guys for watching. This has been episode 1. And
we've been Josh and Kaitlin.
Leave your suggestions down below. And Joseph, the
lovely cameraman Joe.
Thank you, Joseph.
For all the audio listeners out there.
Okay,
Joe the cameraman.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice one.